phase. This is WLUW 88.7 FM. And we have with us at WLUW on Trudy Leong interviews Ron Carter, the founder and publisher of Chicago Street Journal. Welcome, Ron.
Well, thank you for inviting me. I appreciate being here with you.
Let's start over. Ron, could you tell us about how you founded the Chicago Street Journal? It wasn't the Chicago Street Journal, the first name, right?
Well, no, I basically inherit the newspaper from residents of Robert Taylor Homes. I was working with the Chicago Defender doing community organizing, and they wanted to start a newspaper. So I started working with them to start a newspaper. And during that process, it became, I inherited the newspaper from them. So the paper once was called Truth News, and then it was called South Street Journal, and then I changed it to Chicago Street Journal. So it's been in operation now for 32 years.
And when did it become Chicago Street Journal?
And not that recently, maybe about 10 years ago. But prior to that, it was called South Street Journal. The people on the west side and north side was complaining about it being called South Street Journal. And so I expanded the wings of the paper and renamed it Chicago Street Journal from South Street Journal.
Yes. And for the people on the north side that were complaining, where were they?
Well, it was around Rogers Park. That was the area that was wanting the paper to be around there. But when it had South Street Journal on it, it tends to kind of block people's image of the paper. So the same way with the west side. And basically, I wanted to spread the wings of the paper and have a more citywide paper than just focusing on the south side.
When the people in Rogers Park were talking about it, were they involved in the paper, like in the articles and writing in the paper?
Well, I have to put a little sad note on it. It's a lady by the name of Sonia Purdue. She just passed 2 weeks ago. And she was instrumental in promoting the paper on the north side. She stayed around Loyola University, around that area. And we did workshops and networks on the north side, introducing the paper to readers there.
Yes, because I've been living in Rogers Park for 3 years, and that's fascinating. Okay, so it was promoting the content of the paper, or any involvement in the paper itself.
Again, that's Sonia Purdue. She ran an organization called Chicago Black Business Network. Her base was on the north side. She was someone that contributed to the development, not only on the north side, but citywide. She produced my social media. She helped get the paper online. And she was just a good networker. So I really owe a lot of credit to her. And also, again, her passing is a loss. So.
Yes, it sure is. So tell us about the content of your paper. I see that you do some muckraking too.
Well, the paper initially was to serve the Grand Boulevard area, which is now known as Bronzeville. And again, just going back a little bit more, is that the paper was to be dedicated to the public housing of Robert Taylor Homes, which where I grew up at. And so we looked at the paper not to just to serve public housing, but to expand in what was called the Grand Boulevard area. And during that transition, the Grand Boulevard and the surrounding communities converted its name to Bronzeville. And this was somewhere around about in 1993. So from there, but the content was based on community development, and the paper has been used as an organizing tool more than just a journal news. You know, every newspaper have its agenda, and my agenda with Chicago Street Journal was to engage in activism, and it's a tool for organizations to enhance the community awareness and to get them involved and also hold elected officials accountable. So we deal a lot in politics and economic development, and a lot of that came from my roots based on prior to being in the newspaper business, I was a community organizer. So I kind of combined the community organizing aspects of building leadership, building organizations, and that kind of contributed to the newspaper forming Black Wall Street Chicago, in which it was developed to sustain and increase Black businesses. And we have identified certain boulevards and streets in Chicago to do that, enhance and develop new businesses on targeting 75th Street as a main Black Wall Street district.
How hard is it for Black businesses to do business?
Well, there has been a growth of Black businesses, but it has not been in parity to their population. So you can look at different communities around Chicago. For example, Little Village, New City, even Chinatown. And those communities are well stacked in parity to the racial background of their community. That is a far cry from the Black communities where they have not been able to represent the parity, the racial parity of their respective community. So, but at the same time, there has been an increase of Black businesses, but it just not have represented the racial makeup of their communities. There's many issues, you know, that started from redlining to not able to secure financing, not having that networking to produce the capital that's needed. So it's growing, but it has not, again, represents its racial makeup of its selective communities.
Let's address the three issues one at a time. What is the state of redlining now?
Financial institutions have broadened their direction. Redlining was definitely higher during going into the 70s and the 80s. There has been legislation that has put a hold on this redlining. It's a little bit more of a invisible redlining, and that is due to credit, not able to have the credit to obtain the adequate amount of financing to start businesses. And that kind of reflects on other nationalities that do have that may I say, generational wealth that have them to be more productive in starting businesses compared to a lot of black businesses. So the redlining itself is a hinder on more of a lack of credit, in order to obtain it, and that's because there have not been a generation of transfer of wealth within the black community. Uh, the redlining as it was in the before the 1980s is completely different now. But the credit line is not there in order to obtain the adequate amount of financing.
Okay. So two things. Uh, let's say the credit score. If there were two, let's say two individuals, one with both one black and one not black, no matter what race. If they had the same credit score, would they be eligible for the same amount of money?
Well, there is a comedy sketch which I think David Chappelle and uh, Eddie Murphy did. Both of them went into a bank, painted their faces white, and the banker just pulled out a bunch of cash and said, "Here, take it, go." Now that's a comedy sketch. How real that is, but that still relates to that invisible redlining that we just don't know. I still look at there was a generational gap of passing the wealth within the black community that contributed is more because many nationalities they was able to secure their generational pass that wealth on to generations after them. There is also uh, uh, that legislation called EB-5, where foreigners are able to pay visas of, if one time in the 80s it was $500. Today they pay something like $1.4 million for an EB-5 visa, and the purpose of that was to set up businesses in what would you call it, underserved communities. And setting up these businesses, the purpose is that they have to provide at least 10 jobs. So, but that doesn't say that those jobs are devoted to the people in that community. So the EB-5 legislation that came under President Clinton is still in effect. It's approved every 2 years by Congress, and what it does is to infiltrate so-called underserved communities, and they come with the capital to do that.
So they don't have it in the fine print to hire people from the community.
No, that's not part of the legislation. The legislation calls for you have to at least hire at least 10 people in order to set up business in the United States. That's the EB-5 legislation.
Have you ever done any research? Were there any maybe previous rewarding of the legislation that had having to hire people from the community? That's kind of a no-brainer. That if you're going to set up a business in the community dedicated to helping the community, then they should hire from the community at least 5 positions.
That is very rare that you see it. I mean, I'm not gonna speak for every community, but and I'm not taking it away from those foreigners that set up business, but I did interview a couple of them, and I did ask them the question, why don't you hire people from the community? And they basically gave me three reasons. One, that they hire their own. Two, they hire who they can trust. And three, um, they made the remarks that black people don't want to work. So those are the three reasons. Upon me asking them, why do they don't? So they tend to open these businesses, and it's not just one, but they open businesses across the street from each other. So they're securing that market, and as they secure that market, it does leave blacks out because they do not have the capital to compete.
And also, did they ever answer maybe a question from you? Did they ever put out the word that they're hiring in the community?
I can't say that they do. I think that not that I think, but what I witnessed that if you have approximately 10 of those businesses in the community, they may hire one, and usually that one is a security guard.
Mm-hmm.
So the law does not state that they must be like McDonald's. You know, like with McDonald's set up in any particular community, their first priority is to hire within that surrounding community to for that store to represent the population of the community that they're servicing. So they do not use that McDonald's or Sears, I mean, it's not Sears, Walmart, or those other, any other store. That's what they normally do. They make sure that they um, hire from within the community.
Mm. And they do that because did they agree to do that, or did they just want to do that?
Well, it's goodwill to do it. It's goodwill to do it. If you know, I think that there was a Reggio's pizza that was a black pizza operation. They opened up a store on near Roosevelt and Halsted, and they are a black store. They had maybe about 4 stores within Chicago. And when they opened a store on near Roosevelt and Halsted, they hired to represent that community population, which was a mixed community. So they did not just hire blacks in that location, they made sure that they represent that community. Again, it's the same way as big box stores do. They hire to represent their community. That is just part of parity of that community.
So the EP5, those businesses, what is the percentage of those businesses in black communities now?
They are approximately 80%. When you look at the gas stations, you look at the grocery stores, you look at the liquor stores, uh, I would say more of 98%.
So when you were organizing, what were you organizing against something like this, or was it something else?
Well, my organizing was during the, again, it was prior to me getting into the newspaper business. And I worked for the National People's Action. I was the director of the Greater Roseland organization. We organized block clubs. My primary area was in the Roseland community, where we organized black clubs, and we also organized around national issues from the Community Reinvestment Act, the Home Mortgage Disclosure Act, the insurance redlining, community development block grants. So it was starting from a grassroots that took it to the national level. That's the type of community organizing that I did, and because of that type of organizing, I in I enhanced the newspaper to reflect those type of organizing strategies in the content of the news that the paper produced.
Mm-hmm. So community reinvestment does that that's like businesses, right? Reinvesting in the community. That is really hard. You work so hard to get community reinvestment, and now we still have 98% of businesses not really reinvesting in those communities.
Yeah, so you have a historical system. At one time, the black community did control approximately about 70% of its businesses. That's why you call it now Bronzeville, because it was 75% or more of the businesses, uh, and that stopped around the 70s is when the black businesses start decreasing. And that is also when the EB5 came out.
Mm.
You know, you had the insurance redlining during the 70s and the 80s, and at the same time, you had the EB5 coming in, and that redlining of for capital, insurance, from financial institutions, and the EB5, all that clashed at the same time in the black community. And as that did so, um, it took away. You know, at one time, the black community, I mean, even if you know about the Illinois lottery, the Illinois lottery came from the black community, from the policy. It was called the policy, where they used numbers to, you know, it was a form of gambling, but it was also money that started banks. The money also started homeowners in the black community. This is from maybe about the 1930s all the way up to approximately 1970s, when the Illinois lottery came into effect at about 1974. That put the policy numbers that the black community controlled, and the Illinois lottery came up. Instead of calling it policy, they called it the lottery. And that was the policy numbers was capital that was reinvested in the community, and that was using their own money, where they did not depend on financial institutions such as banks and insurance. At one time, you had maybe about 8 banks in the black community, all the way up to about 1995. There were about 8 blacks. As of today, there is 2, and that one is more of it's called the Southside Federal Credit Union, and then you have GN Bank that used to be Seaway Bank, not Seaway Bank, Illinois Service Federal. So that is a representation of the community when you do not have the financial institutions that are part of it. Yes, you do have more banks, but none of them are black owned like they used to be. So that is the lack of black banks also is a reflection of the lack of black businesses to deal and work on their own behalf.
So in other words, the Illinois lottery took a lot of the money out of the community because people were spending money on lottery tickets instead.
Right, and that lottery money, that policy numbers was that it stayed within the black community. Mm-hmm. That money was rotated 100% in the black. Well, I would say 100%, at least 90%, because it again it was used to. I don't know if you call Joe Louis milk. There was Joe Louis milk that was started by Joe Louis, and Joe Louis received his money from the policies. So you had that internal network that was there, and the Illinois lottery took it away.
What about in Tulsa? Was there what were banks like in Tulsa? Did you ever research? What did they have a policy there too?
No, I don't know. They might have had. I don't think they had a policy. I think that, or not just think, but know that the Tulsa segregation helped build Tulsa Black Wall Street because they was not allowed to shop among the white community. So they shopped among themselves. They built those businesses among themselves. And once they did that, that money stayed within. So naturally, after the Tulsa riot of 1921, it did. Oh, I think it destroyed about 300 businesses, and the number is stagnated. Rather, it killed maybe about 1,000 people.
Right.
And so, but the thing is that the Tulsa rebuilt themselves. You know, it wasn't the end. Uh, because after the riots, they rebuilt and was stronger than they were before. But what happened to Tulsa is integration. And when blacks felt good about shopping at outside of their community, that took that money away. So the riots destroyed it of 1921, and then up to about 1950s, blacks was starting to have the privilege of shopping outside their community, and that dissolved the historical strength of the Black Wall Street of Tulsa, Oklahoma. But that's not just Tulsa, Oklahoma. That happened here in Chicago as well. And it's, you know, I mean, I was, I dated a lady that was Asian, and she was Chinese, and she kind of told me about the network of how the Chinese work together, and how they, and watching how she trade and how they had their own network, and they kept that network together, and going to Chinese stores, and I've seen them have that close knit, and I think that's a lot of tradition of how they raise their children. I believe that black folks just have been so depressed that once they start making money, they begin to feel good that they could buy from outside of their community. It's more like a sense of freedom opposed to the sense of community and heritage that they had to keep together.
Is there anybody now that in the community that is encouraging the black community uh, to to be more loyal to the black community in shopping and in doing business?
There are many organizations that has that agenda. Just a couple of weeks ago, there was a spin black on 75th Street, which is a Black Wall Street district. There is a big gap of catching up to be in parity with other nationalities. Matter of fact, I believe that I think I heard this report just a couple of days ago that the Asian population rotate their funds within their community approximately about 80%. Would you agree with that?
I think so. Yes.
Yeah, and then it's the other nationalities come right behind the Asians, and blacks are at the bottom when it comes to. So the black organizations, business organizations, they are focused on that, but because of such a big gap of the redlining and the capital to ignite that, it is going to take some time. As a matter of fact, there's reports that says that the black community would not be equal to other ethnic groups financially. I think that the report said never, not when, but never, based on the big gap as it is. So it's a lot of work that those organizations have to do. And so, but they are working on it. That's one reason why I became the chairman of the Black Wall Street. And it was about being able to focus on sustaining and opening up businesses in the black community. And then there's other organizations and networking organizations that's doing the same. But it's just so much of a historical gap of capital to really meet that goal.
You are listening to 88.7 WLUW Chicago Sound Alliance, broadcasting live from the Water Tower campus of Loyola University. And this is Trudy Leong Interviews. Again, we have with us at WLUW Ron Carter, activist, organizer, and publisher of the Chicago Street Journal. Ron, so what are some solutions? It's that they say never, but do you see so much and you understand so much? Are there any solutions for the black community to overcome this generational wealth gap?
It's going to take some time, Trudy. It's going to take some time. Again, not to get so much into politics, but again, the president has made it publicly what he's going to do to dismantle, where he has dismantled DEI, and that is just the surface. We don't know what he's doing in the background. He has symbolically let the message know that that there is a white agenda that he is pushing. And so that is what we see on the surface is coming from the president, but we do not see what he's doing in the background, behind doors. And behind doors is more harmful than what's in front of your face. It's all, it's the saying that what you don't know won't hurt you, what you don't know can hurt you. So that is a part what we're dealing with. There is progression, as I said earlier, among black organizations to try to close that gap. But because it's so big of a gap, when that can happen, I'm not for sure. I'm just not for sure. It was indicated that the Caucasian population has about $200,000 net worth compared to the black normal household is maybe about $40,000. So how do you close that gap? Yes, there is some government intervention. Government intervention has helped in many ways, but it has not been enough even for the cultural awareness for blacks to do it on their own. That is one reason why we started Black Wall Street, so that the community can have a more identification of the vision of what it must be. That's also including why the paper has embarked on changing the name of Malcolm X, changing Cottage Grove to Malcolm X Drive. It's more like a symbolic identification to resonate in the community to be more self-sufficient. And that was one of Malcolm X's major agendas. He did indicate that you must start these businesses before it's too late. And you're going to look around and you're going to see everybody own businesses in your neighborhood except you. And upon him saying that approximately in 1964, here it is 2026, and that's exactly what it is. You know, don't own none of the gas stations, don't own none of the corner stores, the cleaners. Yes, there is a presence of black businesses, but again, it does not represent the parity of its racial population. So, when and how, I'm going to work on to try to get that answer for you. Yes, I'm going to do what I can to try to get that specific answer for you. And if that can actually be achieved under the conditions of the United States president presently.
So you said that there's some stuff that's happening that's hidden. Do you have any indication of what what is hidden that's happening?
That is a remark by me of general, how can I put it, general assessment of the wheeling and dealing of business. It's more like capitalism is to cap on somebody. You know, you don't. Capitalism is good. I believe in capitalism, but I don't believe in taking advantage of people. The evidence of the unseen that I mentioned it's not there. But for example, in one paper that Chicago Street Journal published, it says Illinois Institute of Suppression with Alderman Dow's shyness. So for Pete's grocery store over Dearborn Homes residents. So that is a story of what you asked me, the underhanded. When residents haven't been with a grocery store in over 25 years in their area, they came together to get a grocery store. And as they came together to get it, the shyness is more like putting a carrot in front of the resident's face. This has been going on for the last 6 years. They say, yes, it's good, but the delay tactics of not allowing it to happen. Do you have this? Do you have that? When aldermen, leaders, such as the alderman, should have the gut to move forward. So her interest is more for Pete's grocery store. And then in that particular story of Chicago Street Journal, we interviewed Pete's grocery store, and Pete's grocery store said, well, we was thinking about it, but we're not going to do it no more. We have no interest of locating on 39th and State Street. So upon Pete's making that statement to the newspaper, we go back to the alderman and the Illinois Tech on, you said you was going to grant the property to us, now you're stalling. So that's an example of the unforeseen tactics to suppress black business development. You can't put your hand on it, but the slyness and the putting the carrot in one's face where you think you're getting there, but the carrot is just not in reach. So you try to bite on it, but it's just hanging in front of your face. So those are some of the examples. There are some good examples of institutional cooperation from financial institutions, from the city of Chicago. Mayor Lightfoot, when she was in office, she came up with this uh, South and West Invest, where she target those type of communities for investment, for business development. That was approximately about $500 million. Uh, and she did that when she was elected. Now that Mayor Brandon is office for 3 years, it still haven't caught up with the parity of the community. And so it's an ongoing cycle to be able to foresee, pardon me for jumping around here, but for a lot of times when you see vacant storefronts, those vacant storefronts are kept vacant because those landlords, they get a tax write-off. So opposed to putting money in it, they make more money by keeping it vacant because they write that loss off on their taxes, and they just hold that property vacant as long as they can. So that's still a strategic way of keeping this particular communities down, and that's basically on the west side and the south side of Chicago. The city of Chicago did just announce last week where they want to sell their properties, commercial and residential. The end result of that, do the black community have the capital to purchase those vacant lots, or those with the capital will come in and snatch it, and when you turn around, it's still not representation of the community racial population.
Wow. Yes, in Rogers Park on Howard Street, there are also a lot of vacancies, and we have been talking about that too, discussing with Neighborhood Revitalization Alliance to address that. Not only in Rogers Park, but it's what you were talking about, the landlords keeping the storefronts vacant so that they could get a tax write-off.
Right. Yeah, and so they make money off of that, or then sometimes they just sit on that property waiting for the right deal. And the longer they sit on it, they know the property value is going to increase, and they're just waiting for the right deal. But there is situations where it's a long term of eminent domain. And for an example, the old post office downtown, you had one owner that was just sitting on that post office. It just stayed vacant for years. And then Rahm Emanuel at the time said this property is an eyesore. So the city took that property away from that owner and gave it to a new owner that had the capital to renovate that old post office. And so it's a matter of the elected officials being aware of the forecast for that community to be able to develop that parity. And then it's not just parity, it is based on who got the money to do it. If you haven't got the money to do it, then you're put out of it.
Yes, but if there's not that generational wealth, it's really hard sometimes for to maybe some kind of collective is really hard for the community members to run those develop a business unless what Lori Lightfoot did. Did residents, did community members get funds to start businesses with the Southwest Invest?
Yeah, that was a good start. I'm not for sure if Mayor Brandon is still focusing on that Southwest Invest, but he has been targeting funds to commercial development, and naturally, he's doing that on the west side because that's his base, that's his home, on the west side. We do get reports from the Department of Planning on development, but is that development still equal to the to that particular community that do not have the resources to invest and start businesses in their own community? That has to be studied. But there is development that is going on, that's for sure.
Do you know if that development is from outsiders with the money, or is there are there people from within the community that are doing some of that development?
Well, that is targeted. The money is targeted for businesses in the community from the city. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, even the city with its large budget do not have the investment capital as the private industry do. So that is the bank's businesses to invest. That's the bank business to provide working capital. The city is doing it as a service, but that is not their real business. Their real business is to govern. Yes, they are to serve the community from garbage pickup to safety, to having a overview of the economic development of the community. But the government is not so much the source of coming up with the capital. The city do work with financial institutions to help and leverage capital, but it is a matter of the old term, follow the money. Where's the money coming from? In a lot of cases, it's not coming from within the Black community because of that stigma of what has not been, that was in the from the 1909 all the way up to the 1960s, where Blacks did use their own capital. But from the 60s, a lot of that, I would, not taking anything away from Martin Luther King as far as the integration, but integration did hurt the Black community. But I also know that Martin Luther King made the remarks that he believed that he was leading his people in a burning house. And he did question his integration policies, and it was more lining up with Malcolm X policies. Malcolm X lowered his standards of racial segregation, and Martin Luther King lowered his direction of integration. So they was both kind of coming together. They only met once in their lifetime, but they were always respectful regardless of the public overtone that a lot of times Malcolm said about integration.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think I did research that subject for another station in which the newspapers were actually trying to put a wedge between Malcolm X and Martin Luther King, but there wasn't that animosity there at all.
Yeah, there is a matter of fact, as you mentioned, that there was a story that what we did in Chicago Street Journal, we did a mock Q&A of Martin Luther King, and one thing he said, we asked him the question, let me ask you about another public figure, Malcolm X. You met briefly in Washington, D.C. In the TV movie Genius, Martin Luther King X the movie script directed that you two were playing good cop, bad cop. Was that a strategy of you two to meet as you did? And King replied, this is a direct quote from Dr. King, is that I met Malcolm X once in Washington, but circumstances didn't enable us to talk. And moving on, he said, I feel that Malcolm has done himself and our people a great disservice. He went on to say that, right before he was killed, he came down to Selma and said some pretty passionate things against me. And that surprised me because, after all, it was my territory there. But afterwards, he took my wife aside and he said he thought he could help me more by attacking me than praising me. He thought it would make it easier for me in the long term. So that strategy is that saying that Malcolm X was doing Martin Luther King a favor by attacking him, because they knew the establishment did not want to deal with him. So that made Martin Luther King stronger as an alternative to dealing with Malcolm X. So that's that bad cop, good cop scenario that they underhandedly orchestrated.
And it's true. Martin Luther King's wife said that it is true that Malcolm X told her that.
Yes, yeah, and there was other remarks about Dr. King regarding Malcolm X. He made some, the thing is that Malcolm X was very misunderstood when he talked about, if you touch me, I'm gonna touch you back. Where Martin Luther King said, if you touch me, I'm going to walk away. I'm going to just let you touch me because I believe in nonviolence. And Malcolm was more of, I'm going to hit you back if you hit me. And people projected that as violence. And people projected his words of revolution. But revolution is not always about violence. It's about dramatic change. And so that's where the up and down conflict that people did not understand. And as we are marking on changing Cottage Grove in Chicago to Malcolm X Boulevard, we have talked to people along the streets. They have nodded their head, yes, yes, yes. But are the elected officials strong enough? Can they get on their knee in support of such a change that we're embarking on?
Do you have any supporters among the aldermen?
Not as of yet. This Malcolm X Boulevard has just came up about 2 weeks ago. We do have a story in this here issue of Chicago Street Journal talking about it. So it came up February the 19th. And so we're kind of pulling the resources together to make it publicly known on May 19th of his birthday. That's when we're going to make the formal announcement and to get the community input and moving forward, changing Cottage Grove to Malcolm X Boulevard.
And who initiated?
Pardon?
Who initiated this?
I did.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I believe that it would give a sense of identity. Sometimes, you have different streets, such as Dr. King Drive, but the identity sometimes help. I'm just looking at Chinatown, when a little 4-year-old boy or 3-year-old child in Chinatown walk down Chinatown streets, they can feel their presence. They can feel where they have their sense of value, from their heritage. And as they walk down 22nd Street, and all of a sudden they see Liam's barbecue, they should probably pull their parents' hand and say, "What this black business doing in Chinatown? This is Chinatown." So I believe that they will grow up with that sense of identity, and that is somewhat the purpose of changing Cottage Grove to Malcolm X Boulevard.
Okay, yes. I see the logic.
Okay.
And uh, when you were in the Robert Taylor homes, and
Mm-hmm.
what ignited that spark to become an activist?
I was a little what you call amateur game banger back in the days, around about 14 years old. And then I was fooling around, joking with some other guys my age, and I felt this a beam of an eyeball hitting me on the back of my head, and I knew who that was, and I just felt it. And he said in a low voice while we was laughing and joking, he said, "Come here." And when he said, "Come here," I knew to give my respect to this older teenager. And he gave me this book uh, called The Autobiography of Malcolm X.
Mm.
And he said, if you don't read it, I'm gonna kick your ass. Pardon my language. But that's what he said. So I believed that he was serious. So when I read the book, it gave me a whole perspective of who I am, why I am, why the community is where it's at, the identity that I never had before. And so I stopped being a gangbanger and became part of the Black Panther Party. And that began to, and during that time, this is back in the 60s, you had this vendetta against white people. But being a part of the Black Panther Party, he said, that's not what we're about. We ain't about attacking white folks. We're about education. We're about learning. Yes, we want to defend ourselves. We do believe in revolution. But this is Black Panther. It doesn't mean that we are a racial organization. So I learned a lot. And matter of fact, even I started to become more involved in my high school. I became more interested in learning. And from that point on, I converted myself into a community organizer.
Mm.
From that time all the way up to now.
I did do read somewhere about the Black Panthers trying to maintain services in the community, like daycare and medical services. Did you have that too?
Oh yeah, you had they started medical centers, free breakfast, education. It was about the militancy of the Black Panther was also about the survival of the community. That you cannot, if you use the term, you can't fight a revolution if you're not fed, if you're not healthy, if you don't have no education. So those are the things that the Black Panther Party identified and the community identified with them because there was survival services, and some of those same survival services the government picked up on, such as free breakfast, such as um, food stamps, such as medical services. So there were survival techniques that the Black Panther had more than just their voice of of revolution. Mm-hmm.
So, you mentioned that if elected officials are not actually helping, let's go a couple of levels and gauge your opinion. Let's say an alderman. What could an alderman do to help bridge that generational wealth gap? You spoke about the mayors. You know, they can only do so much. It's hard for them to have the capital to bridge that wide generational wealth gap. But let's say an alderman. What could an alderperson do to help?
Well, first of all, an alderman is a legislator, not a developer. But because of circumstances in their ward, they do have to engage in development. And they do have to, and they have set up bases to increase the development of businesses in their wards. Uh, it's still it's an absence of their role. Alderman Hall from the Sixth Ward, he had this. I don't think I got it in this here paper. He had the Black Wall Street on 75th Street. He led that with Salem Baptist Church. That is one example of more like a fair or a festival. But that fair and that festival for that one time need to have a ongoing working relationship. I am trying to work with Alderman Hall as we speak to look at implementing that plan, looking at those vacant commercial properties, looking at legislation where if a particular store is sitting vacant, then do the same thing that the city of Chicago did with the post office. Declare that property eminent domain. It's a long process, but the city of Chicago did it, and if the city of Chicago did it, under Mayor Rahm Emanuel, he still needs the alderman's blessing. So if the alderman can do, so if the city mayor can do that with the vote by the city council, the alderman can do that specifically for their specific ward. They do have that capacity to do so through legislation, through zoning, but again, they're not necessarily developers. They are legislators. They must lean on the community organizations to implement that economic development. And again, some of that is happening, but it's just that big gap that takes so much time for the community to see what's going on. Alderman Bill in the Ninth Ward, Michigan Avenue from 103rd Street to 119th Street. It's basically a ghost town. But he has developed a process where not far from Michigan Avenue on 111th Street, he's building groceries, not groceries. Yeah, he built a Walmart. He helped build a Walmart, a Filet-O-Fish. There's going to be a hotel that's built right off the freeway. So that is on the outside of the main street of Michigan Avenue from 103rd to 119th Street. Why isn't he doing it? Is it because he cannot identify the resources? And then also there's the part if the community has a low income, then the businesses want to know before setting up there, can the community support and their business? If they can't see the data that they can make a profit in that community because of the income demographic, then what comes first? Building the jobs or building the businesses? There was a look at the Chicago's near South, in near West Side, where 20 years ago it was blighted. You know, from the freeway going west to, I believe it's to Springfield or Western. It was all blighted. That was 20 years ago. Today, it is a well-developed street going down Michigan, going west on Washington Street, Madison Street, Jefferson Street, and it stopped I think it stopped on the Western, no, Springfield, I believe, yeah, Springfield. At that street, it stopped. So the development went to a certain point. The same way on the south side, from Roosevelt Road going south on State Street, it was blighted. There wasn't no development. And now if you go down from State Street, Dearborn, Washington, going south, all the way up to 24th Street, it's a whole new community.
Well, what are these communities, are these developments helping the Black community?
Well, it's not Black anymore. That's the thing. It's not Black. The near West Side used to be Black, but it's not. You know, for example, the Cabrini Green, that used to be Black. It's not there no more. You look at their property value from $400,000 up. So if you can't afford it, move someplace else. So that's what happened on the near West Side. You know, because the Cabrini Green was maybe about maybe about a mile from where we are right now. Yeah, it was about a mile from where we are now. But if you go down Chicago Avenue, you have no sense that Cabrini Green public housing was there. So it's what you call displacement or cleansing the area. So no, it used to be Black going Chicago Avenue going west, Madison Street. It used to be the same way with State Street going south. It used to be, but now it is approximately about maybe about 80% Caucasian ethnics.
Again, back to my question, I guess we kind of got deviated to developments, and then developments, you know, the alderman could help with developments, yeah, but I think what I was asking was that what could an alder person do to help develop and keep the dollars within, instead of just having development for development's sake, but and then having the area change.
I presented that question to some elected officials in this way, is that the Chicago metropolitan area planning, are you familiar with that? Mm-hmm. Okay. They have set the direction for the year 2050. So their goal is, at first their goal was the year 2020. And that was the near south and the near west. That goal was met. That goal was determined in about 1990. And so in 2010, their goal was met. They built 175,000 housing units in that area. All this was built in since about 1990. Mm-hmm. And that was sanctioned by the state of Illinois, the Chicago metropolitan area planning. And they have secured their goals for the year 2040. Those goals for redevelopment of the metropolitan area has been met. And I asked them the question, I asked them about 2040, and they told me, well, you late. We working on 2050. So with that, I asked those elected officials that question. I said, what can you do if the Chicago metropolitan area planning sanctioned by the state of Illinois, including the city of Chicago, have already set the determination of what the metropolitan area is going to look like for the year 2050? What can you do? A lot of those elected officials did not know what the metropolitan area planning was. They did not know about the 2050 plan. So they did not know. So legislation is already in place to meet the goals for 2050. What can they do? They can question it, they can intervene, but at the same time, Black Wall Street, in 2010, we intervened. And we looked at the plans of the Chicago metropolitan area planning, and we said, you all are not including the Black community. And after many discussions and meetings, then they drew in a direction for the Black community. Sometimes I think that what's the difference between ignorance and institutional racism, or actual deliberate planning based on the resources that a person have. And so what can they do? They can question, they can make sure that their particular wards are included in that plan that has been set up for 2050. I think that what we do, again, is we talk about the 2050 plan as much as possible. I don't know if we got something in this here paper, but then again, it is the nature of elected officials have to be driven to know what they need to do. I mean, for example, there is a process. I was talking earlier about the Rosen community, where there is development, there is happening. It's just a matter of keeping the community abreast and making sure that the community is involved in the process. And this is a picture of the new hotel. That's a new hotel that is Hampton Inn, but they're going to have a 51% Black ownership. So that's a start. That hotel will be Black owned, and then there's the part of the Dan Ryan L that's going to be coming south to 115th Street.
Yes.
And it's a matter of there's going to be a transportation hub of businesses. Is engaging this alderman and this state representative to make sure that there is Black businesses in that transportation hub, and start on them now to make that happen. So we do have to stay on top. I think that elected officials, they campaign on what they're going to do, and then they get lost when they get elected. Or there's some reality that I'm not for sure. I ran for alderman myself.
You did? Where? In what ward?
The 17th ward. And when I ran for alderman, I lost, but I went to the alderman that I lost by and said, "Are you going to, for me to endorse you? I want you to support the Black Wall Street implementation plan of black businesses." He said, "Sure, Ron, I will do that upon your endorsement." I'm sorry, I don't know who this is. And once I endorsed that person, Alderman Thomas, she did not do it. You know, she just did not do it. So it is a matter of sometimes you got to have the resources to help people accountable. You know, and if you don't have that, and that's the thing about doing community organizing. I was a paid community organizer, but I'm not a paid community organizer now. It's my own drive, personal drive, opposed to someone paying me to um, being on that agenda.
Mm-hmm. So in other words, the older people they they could help more, but they could help more. However, they don't probably because the is it hard to help, do you figure, or is it just the resources are not there to help because of that generational gap? It's I really want to explore this with you.
Sometimes the alderman or alderwoman works in behalf of their campaign contributions.
Exactly.
So if and that is the case where I look at that's where I look at the in this issue. Looking at the DT2 forms, it was the IIT have millionaires on they have millionaires on their board of trustees.
Mm-hmm.
Alderman Dow have campaign people that's part of IIT board. So she's following the money that's going to keep her elected. And that's the case with a lot of elected officials, is that money tends to direct their direction.
Right.
And if the community, and then a lot of times the community itself do not fund elected officials' campaign fund. So they are directed based on the funds that's going to get them elected.
Let's say they are not obligated to those donors. What could they do? Uh, what could they do? And also, kind of closely related, the Chicago Planning Commission, they have their plan, and then they have a certain amount, like hundreds of thousands of housing units planned, and they said that they achieved. But those housing units are not necessarily affordable, and even I've heard how affordable housing units are really not that affordable.
There is a true. I mean, in the Bronzeville community, there was um, there's a major takeover of the housing units. There has been a lot of development. Uh, the properties are going for up to $700,000 in Bronzeville, which was basically the black community. Uh, and you know, my office is on 35th and the State Street. You know, big windows, and I can look outside my windows and see people walking by. My office was there for about 10 years, and every year, one year I see a Caucasian walking down the street past my office. And then the next year, I could see 3 walking down the street by my office. The next year is 4. Then next time, they walking their dog. So I seen the visualization of the transformation of the community, and that is mainly because on 35th and King Drive is almost like near south, uh, and the transition would just happen before our eyes every summer. As the weather get bad, get good, you see that transition of people going. So it's going back to uh, you build it, they shall come. But if you don't have the money to come, then you go someplace else. And so, what comes first, the business development or the income of the people to be able to support the business development? So again, the location is key for every business. Am I going to make money there? Am I going to have visualization of my business there? Is there going to be growth in that community to support my business? And is the income there? And if that is not there, there is no direct reason to set business in that area unless those businesses have a roadmap as the Chicago metropolitan area has laid out for the year 2050. So they will look at that map and then they will determine exactly what they need to do, where they're going to locate their business.
Um, so what let's say an alderman is not obligated to the donors. What could that older person do to help to get affordable housing, help the black community rise out of the poverty, overcome the generational wealth?
I think that there are aldermen, elected officials, that are doing their part to a certain degree.
I think that our next DJ has just arrived. Ron Carter of Chicago Street Journal. I think we will continue our conversation at another date. And thank you so much for joining us on WLUW. And you are listening to WLUW 88.7 FM, Chicago Sound Alliance, broadcasting live from the Water Tower campus of Loyola University. Thank you so much. Wow. Time went by so fast. Oh my goodness. Okay, let me.
How long did we was talking?